nega appeared on the garment. The nega reappeared on the garment, and the patch is saved. If nega reappeared on the patch, the garment is burnt. Part of a previously confined garment was used to patch a tahor garment. If nega reappeared on the garment, the patch is burned. If nega reappeared on the patch, the first garment is burned, and the patch functions as an indicator for the second garment. On a coat that is colored in white parts, the white parts expand from one to another. If Eliezer was asked, what if there was only one white section? He said to them, I was not taught. If Yehuda ben Becerra said to him, I can expound on the subject. He said to him, if it is to uphold the words of the sages, you may. He said to him, perhaps it will remain the same for 2 weeks, and clothing that remains the same for 2 weeks is tameh. He said to him, but you are a great scholar, for you have upheld the words of the sages. Continuous expansion may be of any size, and distant expansion may be the size of a grist. And, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. And returning expansion must be the size of a grist. The warp and the weft threads are immediately susceptible to Negaim. Rabbi Yehuda said the warp is susceptible only from the time it is boiled, and the weft immediately from the sponge threads of linen from when they are bleached. How much oil must be on the spoil to be susceptible to Negaim? Enough to weave it for 3 by 3 finger breadths. Warp and weft, even if it's all warp thread and all weft thread. If the thread is disconnected, it does not become tameh with Gaim. And Rabbi Yehuda says even if it is split only once and he tied it, it does not become tameh.
Yeah. Now continuing on the subject of the loom, with things that are loaded up on the loom. Okay. Well, actually, we're not yet on the loom. Right now, we're hamale esapakas lechaverta. So he's busy spooling thread from one ball to another. Okay. What are the terms? Let me just get the exact terms that Kahati uses. My English Kahati uses. Say from one coil to another, from one spool to another. From the upper beam to the lower beam on the loom. Okay, so basically you're moving the thread from one to the other. And 2 pieces of cloth. So when you're making a shirt, there's a piece of cloth for the front, a piece of cloth for the back, and you start stitching them together in order to join them. And they've just started stitching.
The diagram. Can you see this diagram?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, sorry.
So basically moving it from one to the other. Okay.
Other, right.
Okay, and now and now a nega appears on one side. So now obviously that side has got to be quarantined. What about the other side? Is it considered connected so that it has to be quarantined with the first side? The answer is Hareya Sheni Tahor. The second one is completely Tahor. You can just cut off whatever is currently connecting them because it's not a full connection yet. Or when in the case of the shirt, or when it's spooling from one to the other, that one thread isn't enough to connect them. The nefesh hamaseches. Now, the nefesh hamaseches, which is like the soul on the web. In other words, what's happening is that it's on the loom, and a thread went through, but it hasn't yet been bound in, and the nega appeared there. So it's not yet bound into the fabric. Or in the chassis is the warp that's been loaded onto the loom, but it hasn't had the weft threaded through it, so it's just a bunch of parallel threads that are loaded onto the loom. Okay, and the nega appears inside there. Hare elu mitamim b'negaim miyad. These things are already susceptible for Negaim, even though they haven't had anything threaded on them. So they are susceptible. Now, didn't we know this already? Just a second. Oh, right. So they join together with each other. So if a thread appears in one part, if a nega appears in one part of the thread, then the whole area is affected as one. So it's beyond just that the nega affects the thread that it's on. It's also everything else that's in that area it also needs to be quarantined. Okay. Rabbi Shimon Omer Hashesi im haya ratzuf metame. He says, so Rabbi Shimon says, if the warp was continuous, i.e., if the threads were packed together closely, then it can all be rendered tameh. Otherwise, each thread is regarded as standing alone, unconnected. But the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Shimon, and even if they're not tightly pressed, then they can still be considered connected. Okay. Mishna Yud. Nira b'shesi ha'omed. So if a nega appears in the warp that is not yet been threaded, so it's separate from, so the part there's, if you imagine on the loom, there's a part that's already been threaded and it's become a fabric, and then there's the part that's still sticking out on the loom that hasn't yet been threaded. Okay, that hasn't yet had the cross, the warp, the weft hasn't yet been threaded through it. Okay. Ha'arik tahor. So if it appears on that unbound part, then what's already been threaded is still tahor. It's not considered connected. Okay. Nire ba'arig hashesi ha'omed tahor, and vice versa. The same applies. If the nega appears on the part that's already been completed, it doesn't affect the threads that have not been completed yet. So you can cut it off over there, quarantine what's already been threaded, and reuse those other threads for a new garment.
It said the fringes must be burned.
We haven't got there yet.
Okay.
We were talking about we're still talking about the loom. If what appears on the woven cloth, the ready warp is pure. Okay. Nira Basadin. Now, if it appears on a sheet, that's soref es hanimin. So then the threads on the outside are batel to the main thing. So you just imagine with a talus, like for example, a talus, you've got those bits on the end. So that's like the sadin with the fringes on the end. So the fringes are secondary to the main garment, and therefore if it gets a din of streifa, then the edges also have to be burned with it. Nere benimin, however, if the nega appears only on the edges, hasadin tahor. So that doesn't drag the rest of the cloth with it. Okay. Chaluk shenire bo nega. Now, if you have a shirt where there was a nega, the hems are actually not tame. Now, why are we talking about the hems not being tame? Because the Rash explains that this is because the hems are normally colored, and the colored part we said Negaim don't affect. Afilu argaman, even if the colored part is argaman, which is wool, which is one of the materials that is susceptible to Negaim, but because it's colored, it's argaman, it is not susceptible. I'm not sure why we needed a specific Mishnah to tell us this, because we already had learned the fact that Negaim only affect the white part of the garment. But anyway, it's mentioned over here, and I don't see any other explanations as to why it's mentioned. Does the ArtScroll have any other explanations for?
I don't see it. I'm reading it now. I don't see it. See anything?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anything that can become tame mace. Okay, remember the distinction between tame mace and tame midras. Tame midras is something that you put your weight on. Okay, either by sitting on it or by standing on it. Okay, that's tame midras. So even those things can become tame with negaim. Kagon kela shel sfina, for example, even the sail of a ship. Sail of a ship is made out of cloth and nobody stands on it. It's not subject to midras tuma. However, if it gets a nega, it gets a nega. Okay, a vilon or a curtain. Shavis shel savacha. Shavis shel savacha is the headband of a hairnet. Okay, mitpachos shel sfarim, or kerchiefs that are used to wrap books, galgilon. A girdle, ritus min al sandal sheyesh bahen rochav kagris, and shoe or sandal straps that are as wide as a kagris even. Okay, hare elu mitamin benagaim. They're susceptible to negaim, even though there's no midras tuma about them. Segos. Now, segos, remember, is that big hairy cloak. Okay, so it's not like a nice neat fabric like this. It's got a lot of hairs on it. And now shenir bonaga. Okay, so now a nega appears somewhere on this sagos. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer ad sheyeireh ba'arigu v'mochin. Says the nega has to appear on the base cloth. It can't just be that all the hairy bits on the if the hairy bits on the outside get the green or red discoloration, that doesn't make it a nega until it's actually on the basic cloth, as well as on the other threads. Okay, and it's said in his opinion. This opinion is said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, but it doesn't look like there's anyone who disagrees with him. So a water skin or a backpack. Okay, Nirin Kedarkan. They are examined for Negaim exactly as they are used. And why they mention that, because they're tied up and the leather gets pinched. So if the leather, so we saw before when you're examining Negaim on a person, you look at them in the way that they're normally standing, right? So you don't lift up folds. So if somebody is like very fat, you don't open up the folds in their skin to see if there's a nega inside the folds. It's just whatever is visible to the eye as it normally is. Okay, the same thing goes for the water skin. Even though it's pinched up, you don't open up the folds to see if the nega is inside the folds. Okay, so and the same goes for that backpack. I've just lost my place now. And it can spread from the inside to the outside, and from the outside to the inside. Now, how does that work? So if there's a nega requiring quarantine at the end of the week, it passed through the thickness of the leather and can be seen on the other side, it is impure by spreading. Okay. This is only applicable to leather, because to regular garments, the cloth is normally thin. So you wouldn't. So in any case, it would be on both sides to start off with. But if it's but the leather, you might be able to see it only on one side, and then if it spreads through to the other side of the leather, that's called the spreading.
Yeah, from inside out and outside in. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And that's it for today.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it covered him completely all at once, if it was from a state of tahara, he is tummy. If it was from a state of tuma, he is tahor. One who becomes tahor from a status of confinement is resolved from letting his hair grow, from rending his garments, and from shaving from the birds. One who becomes tahor from a state of confirmation is obliged to do all of them. Both cause tuma upon entering a house. One who comes completely white but has a patch of living skin the size of a lentil, whose nega covered him completely and then the extremities reverted, Rabbi Yishmael says it is like the reverting of the extension of a large baharis. Rabbi Eliezer ben Arya says it is like the reverting of the extremities of a small baharis. One can show his nega to a Kohen and gain, and one can show his nega to a Kohen and lose. How so? Someone who was confirmed tummy and the symptoms disappeared, but if he did not succeed in showing it to the Kohen before it covered it completely, he is tahor. Whereas he has shown it to the Kohen, he would be tummy. On the other hand, someone who had a baharis with nothing in it, but he did not succeed in showing it to the Kohen until it covered him completely, is tummy. Whereas had he shown it to the Kohen, he would have been tahor.
Okay. What else?
And a boil or burn is tummy for no more than 1 week.
Wait. No, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go to Ohalos.
And we have Yudal Gimel. A rod that is on top of a doorway, even if it's 100 cubits high, spreads tuma, no matter how narrow it is. These are the words of Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nori says, do not treat this as any stricter than a ledge. A ziz-type ledge encircles the entire house and overlaps 3 fingerprints of the doorway. If tuma is inside the house, utensils underneath the ledge become tummy. If tuma is underneath the ledge, Rabbi Eliezer rules the house tummy, and Rabbi Yeshua rules the house tahor. The same applies to a courtyard surrounded by an awning. There are 2 ledges, one above the other in a handbreadth wide, and there is a cubed handbreadth between them. If there is tuma underneath them, whatever is underneath them becomes tummy, and if there is tuma between them, whatever is between them becomes tummy. If there is tuma above them, whatever is directly above it, up to the sky becomes tummy. If the upper one extends beyond the lower one by a handbreadth, and tuma is underneath or between them, whatever is underneath or between them becomes tummy. And if there is tuma above them, directly above it, up to the sky becomes tummy. If the upper one extends beyond the lower one by less than a handbreadth, and tuma is underneath them, whatever is considered underneath them or between them becomes tummy. If there is tuma between them or beneath the extension, the Eliezer says whatever is underneath them or between them becomes tummy. And Yeshua says, whatever is between them and whatever is underneath the extension becomes tummy, and whatever is underneath the ledges themselves remain taho.
Okay.
In a case,
That's it. That's it.
that's it. And
Yeah. Elim Yud Aleph Zayin.
a horn that is curved is tummy, but a straight horn is tahor. If its mouthpiece was of metal, it's tummy, and regarding its bell, tafron was a tummy, but the tummy was a tahor. And when they are joined together, everything is tummy. Similarly, the branches of a candelabra are tahor, but the preach and the base of the candelabra are tummy, but when they are joined together, everything is tummy. Excuse me, a helmet is tummy. The cheek guards are tahor. If the cheek guards have a receptacle for water, they are tummy. All implements of war are tummy, and a kidden, a spearhead, greaves, and a coat of mail are tummy. All women's jewelry is tummy. The city of gold, chokers, earrings, and finger rings. Excuse me, a finger ring, whether it has a signet or does not have a signet, and nose rings. Regarding a choker whose beads are of metal and strung on a linen or wooden thread, even if the thread snapped, the beads are tummy, since each one of them by itself is a utensil. Regarding a metal thread that was strung with beads of precious stones, pearls, or glass, if the beads broke and the thread alone remains intact, the thread is tummy. The remnant of a choker is the width of the neck size of a young girl. And Rabbi Eliezer says, even if one bead remains in its tummy, since people hang it around the neck. Regarding an earring that is shaped like a pearl at its lower, regarding an earring that is shaped like a pot at its lower end and like a lentil at its up top, and it became a part, the section resembling a pot is tummy because it is a utensil with a receptacle, and the lentil-shaped portion is tummy by itself. However, the hook is tahor. An earring that was made like a cluster of grapes and became a part is tahor. Okay.
Okay, that's it.
And avos. Okay. Hey, Yud Zion. Any dispute that is for the sake of heaven will endure, but one that is not for the sake of heaven will not endure. What is an example of dispute that is for the sake of heaven? The dispute between Hillel and Shammai. And what is an example of dispute that is not for the sake of heaven? The dispute.
Karen.
And what is an example of dispute not is for the sake of heaven? The dispute of Korach and its entire company. Whoever causes the public to do good will not be given the opportunity to do sin, but whoever causes the public to do evil will not be given the opportunity to repent. Moses married and brought merit to the public, thus the merit of the public is to his credit. As it is said, he carried out the righteousness of Hashem and his ordinances with Israel. Jeroboam son of Nebat sinned and caused the public to sin, so therefore the sin of the public is a charge against him, as it is said, for the sins of Jeroboam that he committed and that he caused Israel to commit. Anyone who has in his hand the following three things is counted among the students of the patriarch Abraham, and anyone who has in his hand three other things is counted among the students of the evil Bilam. One who has a good eye, a humble spirit, and a reserved nature is counted among the students of our patriarch Abraham. And one who has an evil eye, a haughty spirit, and an indulged nature is counted among the students of Bilam. What is the difference between students of our patriarch Abraham and students of the evil Bilam? Students of our patriarch Abraham eat in this world and inherit in the next world, as is stated. The Torah have what to bequeath to those who love me, and I shall fill the storehouses. But students of the evil Bilam inherit Gehenna and descend to the well of destruction, as it is said, and you, O God, you will lower them into the well of destruction. Well of destruction, men of bloodshed and deceit shall not live out half their days, but as for me, I will trust in you. Okay. That's scary. Okay, Kasubas. Gimel. If an adult male was intimate with an infant girl, if an immature boy was intimate with a mature female, if a woman was injured by a piece of wood, the ketubah is 200 zuz. These are the words of Rameah. And the sages, however, say the ketubah of one injured by a piece of wood is 100. A virgin who is a widow, divorcee, or has performed kalitza after marriage, in all these cases, the ketubah is 100 zuz, but no claim concerning their virginity can be lodged against them. A proselyte, a captive, or a slave who were ransomed or converted or emancipated over the age of 3 years and a day, the ketubah is 100, and no claim concerning their virginity can be lodged against them. If one eats in their father-in-law's house in Judea without witnesses, he cannot lodge a claim concerning her virginity against her because he excludes himself with her. Both the widow and of a non-Kohen and the widow of a Kohen have a ketubah of 100 zuz. The court of the Kohanim will collect 400 zuz for a virgin, and the sages will not stop them.
Okay.
And yeah. And last we have
Trumos.
Okay, Trumos. Base. If one had produce in his storehouse and gave one saw to a Levite and one saw to a poor man, he may separate another 8 saws and eat them. So says Reb Meir, but the comments say he may only separate in accordance with the exact quantity. The measure of truma, a generous portion, 1/40th. Beit Shammai says 1/30th. The average person 1/50th, and the grudging person 1/60th. If one separated truma and found that it was 1/60th, it is truma, and if he need not separate. If he added it, he's liable to maseris, and if he found that it was 1/61st, it is truma. But he must separate again according to his custom by measure, weight, and number. And Rabbi Yehuda says even that from that which is not close by. If one says to his agent, go and set aside truma, he must separate according to the owner's mind. If he does not know the owner's mind, he separates according to the average person, 1/50th. If he gave him 10 less or 10 more, his truma is truma. But if he intentionally added even only one, truma is not truma.
Okay.
Good. Oh, we got learning in today. Great. Okay. Okay. So we'll see what it'll be on Sunday. Okay, we'll see. Sunday will be the same thing.
Same thing.
Thank
Okay.
you. Have a great job. Let's enjoy.
Good
Thank you.
job,
Bye.
and good